Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm their friend and guest, Alan Singer.
Dr. Alan Singer, educator, historian, thanks for being with us. We're taping the Wednesday before our Monday air, being brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and Zoom. And no air conditioner on while we're doing this. I'm sweltering, so let's get this over and done with it quickly as possible. And I look like I'm sweltering under whatever. Because it's going to be in the news, whatever, because all the issues covered by it is Joe Biden and Joe Biden's agenda. And let's just jump in with a Joe Biden report card, guys, because as much as his goodwill that he came into office with circumstances, pandemic and whatever, are making his time in office not easy, not pleasant. And so let's give him as objective a report card as we can based on the circumstances. Alan, you immediately mentioned the fact of human rights when we talked about agenda. And so the infamous fist bump is as good a way to start with his foreign policy trip as any. And so pros and cons.
Well, first, just one little aside. They've been polling amongst potential Democratic Party voters for 2024. Probably about 75% would hope that Joseph Biden at this point does not run for re-election. So that doesn't bode well when members of his own party, even members of our own party who feel he's doing an okay job, don't want him to run again. Biden's going to have to decide soon because otherwise he's going to clog up the primary waterways. He just did a trip to the Middle East. He visited Israel and Saudi Arabia. Those were the two big stops. And my concern about the trip to Israel is that, the United States keeps maintaining that Israel is our closest ally and we're on the same page. But I don't think the United States and Israel are on the same page a lot of the time, especially when it comes to the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, where Israel keeps expanding its settlements and denying basic human rights to Palestinians. Now, what both Israel and Biden have tried to do was to develop a closer relationship with Saudi Arabia. Israel and Biden hoping that Saudi Arabia can be an ally against Iran. But in doing that, they're pushing Iran into the Russian camp, into an alliance with Putin. Biden is hoping that Iran will decide to produce more oil and maybe bring down oil prices. But the underlying problem here, and actually there's two of them, is Iran has a horrendous human rights record against women in Iran. But Iran has sponsored Sunni Islamic fundamentalists all over the globe that are tied into terrorist activity. And last, Iran is responsible for the brutal murder of a newspaper reporter who wrote for American newspapers while he was in Turkey. So, the United States keeps saying we're the nation fighting for democracy in a better world. It's not clear why anybody's giving a fist bump to the Prince Regent of Saudi Arabia.
It wasn't a good look for Biden at all. I mean, I don't know why the fist bump was necessary. A simple hello would have done. I don't know why that had to be orchestrated. And so, yeah, and as far as his popularity, if you remember when the AP and the New York Times called the election, at the point where he was officially declared the winner by the news agencies, there were parties and celebrations in multiple cities. So that was like the absolute high point of his popularity, and it slid down since for multiple reasons, including some, like you just said, some international relations missteps.
Well, I just think Biden has been very ineffectual. He comes across that way. Maybe I'm not being fair to him, But, I'm looking at what the recent travesty where Senator Joe Manchin, who represents about 200,000 people in the state of West Virginia and a lot of coal companies, essentially vetoed the Biden climate and the Biden domestic agenda.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give Joe Manchin a pass on anything, because Joe Manchin's been stymieing Democratic agendas even before Biden got in office. So I'm not gonna. Biden is coming across as ineffectual because of a number of different things. The oil prices he can't control because of inflation, because of supply and demand, because of any number of things, including Putin's war in Ukraine. And so that stuff, he's going to get blamed for it because he's in office. There's no two ways about that. I don't give him a pass for fist bumping the guy who ordered the killing of Khashoggi. I don't know whether he's trying to form any alliance with Iran at all based on my reading. I think the only thing he wants Iran to do, he might want him to come out with more oil, but that's not what I think his agenda is. His agenda is to try to get them to come back and sign that nuclear agreement, that Trump torpedo. And that's where his people have been pushing their foreign policy agenda as far as Iran is concerned. But you're right, Alan, about the fact Iran is just as bad as Saudi Arabia when it comes to human rights abuses. So that's another reason for not trying to be friendly with Iran. And yeah, I can see why, as they have been doing in the past, his foreign policy has also been helping and assisting the Israelis in their proxy war, in their fight against the Iranians, because he understands that the Israelis are like his proxy person trying to stymie Iran's push in that region to undermine the stability of the region. So yeah, it's a mixed report card on what they're doing in the Middle East as far as I'm concerned. I'm with you, Alan, on the fact that they have been one-sided when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians. They have been one-sided when it comes to trying to supposedly broker a two-state agenda in that region. They have been totally feckless about making sure they push back against Israel when they try to undermine the two-state. Because as you have stated to us on more than one occasion, Israel keeps putting more settlements out there and keeps doing things to undermine this two-state agreement. So yeah, he does not get a pass. I know Trump pushed that Israeli agenda more than any other president, but Biden hadn't pushed back on Trump's thing, and so he does not get a pass there. And so yeah, that's why he's appearing feckless, because a lot of the stuff that he should be doing, he's not doing, and the things that he's trying to do, outside forces are cutting his hand. Now, the inside force, to pick up what you were saying on Manchin, Manchin has torpedoed Biden's and the Democrats' agenda on climate. And because he's done that, it's made us look bad internationally on accords that we were trying to sign as far as climate agreement. And the fact that I know while we're taping today, he's going to be having some speech up in Boston somewhere, Somerset, Massachusetts, about wind energy and all that. But the fact that he has not decided to declare a climate emergency, even though that would give him more ammunition besides just an executive order to combat what the Supreme Court has done in gutting the EPA, to combat what's actually going on in actual wildfires, storms, floods, that's happening as much in this country as it's happening overseas. The fact that he won't declare climate emergency, I find not smart, not wise, and won't help him and his party when it comes time for midterm elections.
But I think the problem is that he's worried, maybe too much so, about basically coal-fired blowback from not just Manchin, from the basically arming Republican ads with something else to throw at the, what they would call the far left Democrats. Look, they're trying to, take away all of our energy with these crazy wind blown schemes. And, so he's afraid of that. And, Biden, I keep telling myself, it's too bad we didn't get to see the 60-year-old Biden as president. We're getting the 80-year-old version who's worn out. He's tired. And I think he has some health issues because, he has to talk and cough. He has that throat problem. So he doesn't appear like a hard driving president. He, there again, that's not his fault. Yeah. But he's a nice guy, but a nice guy isn't what we need right now. We need a little bit more force.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Other presidents, you're right, Bob. I agree. Teddy Roosevelt talked about the presidency as this bully pulpit. And Harry Truman, said the book stops here with me. And LBJ would put the squeeze, and he was a big guy, would put the squeeze on politicians that wouldn't toe the mark. And Joe Biden says, look, I'm a nice grandpa. And it doesn't work. I'm looking at Joe Manchin and I'm saying, how come they're not threatening to investigate his coal businesses? How come they're not exposing all the things they're involved in? Why aren't they threatening him? And I'm saying, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, they don't have the balls. And we need a president with balls like Nancy Pelosi.
No, you're right. You're right, Alan. LBJ, President Johnson had the treatment, as they called it. I mean, he would just, call somebody into his office and just give it to him for, however long it took to convince the poor soul that to switch positions. But yeah, Biden doesn't have that, and that's it's just bad for this moment.
Yeah, but I got to remind you guys that the reason why he does not have a big stick is because he barely has a majority in the House and he has no majority in the Senate. And that's the reason why Manchin can torpedo all of his agenda, because they need a majority if they pass a bill in the Senate, and they can't get it because 50-50 means the Republicans can stop every bill. And if Joe Manchin doesn't vote with them, it all goes down to 2. And that's why they can't wield a stick. That's why, because they don't have the numbers. Now, Biden's correct. He would love to wield a big stick, but he doesn't have the stick to wield because he doesn't have the numbers. You got to tell me. So take, for example, the House just passed a bill because they need to push back on the Supreme Court. They passed a couple of bills, one trying to guarantee same-sex marriage, trying to guarantee interracial marriage, because Clarence Thomas said, we need to revisit those laws and see if we want to keep those on the books, just like we don't want to keep abortion on the books. They passed a law guaranteeing a woman's right to abortion access. All those barely scraped, I shouldn't say barely, some Republicans actually voted for them, maybe 27, 67, something like that. Most of the Democrats did. So they got by the House. But all those laws that they just passed, as much as Joe Biden railed against the Supreme Court killing Roe versus Wade, as much as he said, we're going to protect all these other issues that are on the drawing board. If the filibuster is not killed in the Senate, and guess what? It would take Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to agree to kill the filibuster. If it's not killed, none of these laws are going to get passed in the Senate, correct?
Except, in the same way that Biden could put the LBJ squeeze on Manchin, he could do it on the Republicans as well. In the United States Senate, Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, and Tennessee. Each has 2 Republican senators, and each one of those states and state governments is subsidized by federal welfare and federal building policies. New York, California, we paid so much taxes into the federal government that our tax dollars subsidize all of those states. And I'm prepared. I don't know why someone doesn't get up and say, look, you're going to vote these things down. You're going to be punished. And voters in your state are going to know that federal dollars are not coming anymore because you refuse to support federal programs that people desperately need.
Yeah, but how are they going to actually make that work? I just saw a report about a judge, I believe it was Tennessee, a Republican appointed judge, who just put the kibosh with an injunction on Joe Biden's executive order that was designed to protect LGBTQ rights in that state. And it said that it would stop federal funds to that state if they didn't abide by the directives that came out of the ruling from the executive order. This judge says, oh yeah, but we can't cut off federal dollars for education to our state because your agency has decided we're going to do that. I'm going to grant this injunction and we're going to fight this out in court. What's to stop them from doing that all up and down the line?
They could do it, but you don't give them the money. While it's in court, we're not giving them the money.
On that order saying, no, you can't do this. So then they end up trying to fight this out in court and the money's still flowing. So I'm just saying, I hear where you're coming from. And yeah, it'd be nice if that could happen. But if it's an executive order, right? And if it's something that somebody can take to court and say, we want an injunction on this, which is exactly what they did in Tennessee, then it sounds like he has the ability, but just like that threat to cut off federal laws if you don't abide by this, get rid of these discriminatory laws that you have, it's still one of these, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. He's trying, but here's a Republican appointed federal judge saying you can't do that.
That's the point. And if it ends up in the Supreme Court, we know where it's going. So
we got a problem in this country.
And it's not a short-term one. We're not going to get out of this by the midterms. We're not going to get out of it by 2024. It's going to take a while to get the hell out of this mess because it took a while for this mess to develop. Boy. It started with some appointments before the Trump administration. The Trump administration heavily enhanced the crap we're going through right now.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. So we're not getting out of this quick.
I'd rather see them fight it and lose.
I agree.
Not fight it at all because they're not fighting it at all.
Look, I'm with you on that, and I wish he would declare a climate emergency. I wish he would put out these executive orders, but here comes these injunctions for the executive orders. But like you said, okay, let's put them out there. Let's see what happens. What you were talking about midterms, Bob, as part of all this fight about how the Supreme Court's ruling, we saw where a number of Congress people, like AOC and Carolyn Maloney and Ilhan Omar and a few other people got arrested on the steps of the Supreme Court because they were blocking traffic in front of the Supreme Court. They got 3 warnings, they didn't move, they arrested them because they're trying to protest visibly the Supreme Court rulings. So that's going to be a big issue in the midterms. A related story, I don't know if you have it up, Bob, but the doctor in Indianapolis,
yes,
the headquarters, because she performed the abortion on the 10-year-old girl that had been raped and gotten pregnant. The attorney general in the state of Ohio claimed that she had broken all kinds of laws and never reported her stuff, et cetera, et cetera.
Indiana.
It was
in Indiana, but it's Ohio where the kid was raped. Right?
Yes, it was in Ohio where the 10-year-old was raped, but it was in Indiana, I guess, obstetrician, and she's going after the Indiana Attorney General, Todd Brukita.
Yes.
But go ahead.
Well, I believe her name is Bernard. Yes.
Yes. Dr. Kate, I have it up. Dr. Caitlin Bernard, the Indianapolis obstetrician gynecologist who provided an abortion to a 10-year-old rape victim from Ohio. after the state outlawed the procedure for pregnancies past 6 weeks, has filed a notice that she intends to sue Indiana's Attorney General for statements he made about her on Fox News. And he basically said that she did not inform the state that she was doing this procedure within the time required, and some other false claim.
She has a habit of never reporting properly, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
It turned out to be a total lie. And so she said, hey, that's slander, that's whatever, defamation of character. You're on notice that we're filing suit.
And she had reported it. And like we said, like I was telling you before we went on air, this is a clerical thing for the AG to look that up. So he should have known. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying this issue is going to play out, whether it's congresswomen getting arrested, whether it's abortion providers suing people for defamation of character. This is going to pop up on that midterm, as much as the Republicans would like it not to, but I'm sure it might energize some women voters, and it may change the tenor of how the midterms come up. What else? Speaking of elections, tell me a little bit about that Georgia election and the candidates that we think may or may not be germane for being public servants. You sent us a text, or Bob, on your buddy.
Oh yes, on former football star Herschel Walker, who's running for senator against Warnock in Georgia. And over the last few weeks, he's proven through what he's said at rallies and what he's said in interviews that he's basically as unqualified as anybody I've ever heard. I mean, in one instance, and I think you quoted him as well, Alan, he said he complained that we were getting bad air from China, where we have the best air in the world, and we're losing it, and we get the bad air from China, and now we got to do something about the bad air we get from China. And during another campaign appearance, he referred to critical race theory, CRT, as CTR. He is not at all prepared, but yet he was neck and neck with Warnock until recently, where I believe Warnock is a few points ahead in the poll, in the Quinnipiac poll, which is a very good one.
See, what disturbs me is the cynicism of the Republican Party. Warnock is an African-American male. He's a civil rights leader. He's a minister, and apparently a very effective community leader. To defeat him, what the Georgia Republican Party and Donald Trump have been touting Herschel Walker as an African-American hero. And that Herschel Walker, at the age of 60, has a very troubled past and may well be suffering some of the repercussions of being a professional football player. He should not be in the United States Senate, whatever his ideas are. But the Republican Party, in its cynicism, saw him as a candidate who could cut into Warnock's support because maybe African Americans would vote for Herschel Walker.
That may be so, but on the flip side of the coin, Herschel Walker defeated a bunch of other wacko Republicans in the Georgia primary, didn't he? Wasn't he like number 3 people in that race? So that means Georgia Republican voters, they had to first deal with their candidates, and they picked this whacked out guy. Who was it? CTH that these football players are suffering from?
It's basically right? Repetitive concussions. The effects of that.
The acronym is C. Now, he can confuse CRT with CTR.
Yeah.
He may be suffering from CTH, or he may just be a downright plain dodo of a person with no intelligence whatsoever. Yeah. But if the Georgians can pick Marjorie Taylor Greene, why are we surprised that the Georgia Republicans are going to pick Herschel Walker? It may not be cynically, let's get a black man against a black man. Let's just get another whacked out, far right crazy, because that's who we like. I mean, I'm trying to be funny, but I'm not really trying to be funny.
Right.
This may be as simple as they like what he's saying, Alan.
And he has high name recognition, and we have about 3 minutes.
The Democrats are playing a very dangerous game in the 2020 midterms. they've been channeling money to some of the more extreme Republican primary candidates, figuring that if they got the nod, it would be easier to defeat them in the general election. So what has happened in both Pennsylvania and Maryland, you have Republican candidates who are at the most extreme. The Republican candidate from Pennsylvania for governor, he was part of January 6th. And so the Democrats have gambled that these people will be easily defeated because they would be hard to stomach. But this could backfire, and we could end up with lunatics in the government in Maryland, in Georgia, and in Pennsylvania. And this, I'm just very frightened going into the 2022 election.
Well said, Alan, because guess what? The Republicans did that in 2016, and the Democrats thought they were going to defeat the lunatic that the Republicans put up. And the country is now still suffering from that silly, crazy assumption that the Democrats made in 2016 nationally. But you're right. I guess we're about out of time. Quick update. Elon Musk is going to have to go to trial about the Twitter deal in October, not next year. Rupert Murdoch is not going to be severed from the Dominion suit against Fox. He's going to be part of the suit as well.
The Dominion voting machines, right. Go ahead.
And there was a third case, I forget what it was, but there was a story about a cop in Rochester who slammed and temporarily arrested an EMT trying to assist a patient in a hospital. He's now suspended. Maybe that story should be told in depth, but we're out of time.
Yeah, I mean,
she was a black EMT, and so he felt, hell, I'm in my rights, even though his car was parked in the ambulance bay of the hospital when she brought the ambulance in. He was parked illegally. Her door hit his car. He tried to put her under arrest. Craziness.
She made the mistake of suggesting that she should take care of the patient before taking care of him. And we have about 30 seconds.
Well, can't make this stuff up, folks. This has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on Twitter and YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
And I'm their guest and friend, Alan Singer, sitting in 95-degree heat, but at least we're not in London and Paris, where it's like 104 degrees.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Singer. Appreciate it. Folks, stay safe, stay cool, stay vaccinated or get vaccinated, and we'll catch you the next time.